This episode of Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Do you know a podcast fan? Well, if you do, Tweaked Audio headphones make the perfect gift. They offer awesome headphones, and you can go to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code SOUTHGATE to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. You can also get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Tell them Charles and Jesse sent you.
Titans, go!
Hello again, Titans fans. I'm Charles Skaggs. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. I'm here with my fellow Titan Talker, everyone's favorite Titan Talker, ready to talk some Titans, of course, because this is Titan Talk after all, Jesse Jackson.
How many times can we say Titan Talk in one sentence? Hello, Charles. How you doing? Yes, we are here to talk Titans.
Yes.
And not Hawk and Dove, but
today,
Hank and Dawn.
Hank and Dawn, yes, here for episode 16 of Titan Talk. We're going to talk about, Hank and Dawn, another really creative episode title.
They have not gone really crazy on the titles, have they?
No, it's just like it's like they pulled them right off of the scheduling board.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, okay, here, episode 1, we're going to talk about, the Titan, introduce the Titans, and then we're gonna, we're gonna have, okay, here's Rachel, and here's Donna Troy, and okay, here's Hawk and Dove, and now we're gonna do the origin, so we'll talk about Hank and Dawn in this one. So it's just like put a little more effort into it.
Well, and
just a little bit.
It
doesn't have to be crazy.
I think it's kind of interesting, but do you remember back in the day? We don't do this anymore because you have grocery stores have private labels. But remember the old generic, the white box with the black letters, beer, mac and cheese. That's what this is. These are the very generic title.
Pretty much. The bare bones, but that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. All that matters, of course, is the episode and whether it was a good episode or not, right?
Yes.
So, this is the 9th episode of Titan Season 1, which was released just a couple days ago on December 7th, 2018, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor here in the United States. And written by Jeff Johns, who, if you're a DC Comics fan, you may have heard of for like one of the billion great comics projects he's doing. Currently writing Doomsday Clock and Shazam ongoing series for DC Comics. And the first issue of Shazam was really good, by the way. He's written the previous episode's pilot, or, the Titans pilot. He wrote Origins and co-wrote Origins, I should say. And he also wrote the big Doom Patrol episode. And this episode was directed by Akiva Goldsman, who, in addition to being one of the showrunners on this series, co-wrote the Titans pilot with Jeff Johns, and he also wrote the episode Hawk and Dove. So, interestingly, now he's directing instead of writing, and we'll see what the results are when we talk about it. So, Jesse, real quick, what's your quick thoughts on this one?
I have to accept the fact this is the story they want to tell.
Right.
As I was watching the story, I was thinking of you and I discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
and in your comment about looks like we're taking another unnecessary or maybe unexpected pit stop, you know.
Yes.
Um, and I think I thought the same thing during the episode, but then about halfway through, I said, wait a minute. I bet you the episode's going to end in um, a wake up, some kind of where that it's going to connect us to what's been going on, and so that's
Right.
why
I
they
think we
didn't.
talked about that, if I
Yeah,
recall correctly.
they didn't. That's why they couldn't do this episode right after or right before um, when we originally met the couple. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I was re-scrambling everything. I might do it differently. But I
Yes.
say this to all say, if I just accept this is the fact, this is the story they want to tell it, I like the episode a lot, and I think it may stream like if you're binging it, it may
Yes.
work a little bit better. But
Right.
overall, I still had a good time, and I just am throwing my editor patch away. I just finished watching Brad Meltzer from the writer who did
Right.
Identity Crisis, among all these other books, and he talked about he can't enjoy thrillers much anymore because he's figured out who's done it, and he told the
Yes.
story that it was in a movie. He said 15, 20 minutes into the movie, okay, I know who the killer is and I know why. So the end of the
Yeah.
movie, his wife looked over him and said, "Were you right?" He goes, "My way was better." So
well, speaking as
yeah,
a writer, obviously
yes,
not in Brad Meltzer's league,
yes,
but as a writer, as a published writer, um, I get where he's coming from that, because I have the same issues sometimes. Because I've delved into the mechanics of constructing a story and figuring out how it needs to get from point A to point B to point C,
hmm
then you kind of tend to look for, without even realizing, you're watching something on television or a movie, or reading a book, and you're like, okay, this logically has to figure out, like, if in order for this to make sense, this is how it has to go.
yeah,
And you kind of figure stuff out. So consequently, you get a little frustrated because you're like, well, okay, I've kind of figured out how this needs to go. Now, whether it actually goes that way, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're
yeah,
wrong, of course. But a lot of times you figure out, well, this is probably how it should have gone. And I'm sure that's how he's thinking about it.
yeah, and the other thing I think is interesting is that you you have the ability to um, see what you would have done with the story, and you have to turn that off to enjoy this. Um, I've really have enjoyed. I think they have a very strong vision of what they want the Titans to be, and
Right.
I've enjoyed that vision. It may not be the vision that you would wanted. It may not be the vision I would have wanted. May not have been the story I would have told, but it's a good story in accepting that the way it is. Um, once again, as we go on, Penn Jillette talks a lot about people come to him and say, I really like, how you write about your atheism, but I really think it'd be interesting to read you take on this. And he will say, I agree, you should write that, because then I could read it.
Right.
And so I think the thing Jeff Johns or Akia Grossmith could say, you're right. It would be cool to see a very upbeat live action Titans. You should write those scripts and then try to make it done.
Yeah.
So, what did you think?
Well, personally, I tend to agree with you I was already going to go off on this a little bit, not really go off, but
Yeah.
talk about it, that I would have definitely reordered these episodes,
Mhm.
especially this episode. I think Hank and Dawn would have worked better had it been either before the Asylum episode or before the Donna Troy episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think putting it, because when you're constructing a season, this series only has 12 episodes as far as we know, and you want to build up to that season finale. You want to build momentum. You want to build the tension. And just as Titans was starting to do that with Asylum and then Donna Troy, then we have this great cliffhanger, and then we take this, like, we immediately slam on the brakes and the momentum stops to a halt to do this character episode of how Hawk and Dove got together and how Hank and Dawn got together as well. And while it's a great episode, I do love this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think it's a momentum killer.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I'm kind of surprised that people, like, especially on the level of, like Jeff Johns, and Brian Edward Hill and some other writers, that they're not figuring that out, that it just really kills the momentum. And I don't know what the reasons were. Obviously, we're not privy to the behind-the-scenes stuff. But I would think that this would have worked better had it been like an episode or two prior to this. Now, the only thing that actually makes this work timeline-wise are these Raven flashes where she's calling out for Hank's help.
Yes.
But you could have easily cut those from this and done something else later on.
Well,
like, go ahead.
I think that was their story, right? That was the plan.
Yeah.
That's how you're gonna bring this all together. And like I said, it is. I guess I'm nitpicking a little bit. Is that because it was a great character story?
Yes.
They did try to connect it together. Don't know if I would have done it that way, but ultimately it's where we got to. And yeah, I agree with you. It's almost like they shoehorned the Rachel stuff in there to kind of show you
to make this episode current. Yeah.
And I don't know if and if this had been a novel, it might have worked better. Like if it was a written novel, you would have okay.
You mean kind of like a Game of Thrones type novel where you have like
different
chapters that focus on different characters.
Yeah, and so it would have been okay, but instead we kind of went on a tangent. We kind of knew that was going to happen. I certainly agree that it's a good tangent. What they were going to do, I think this is. The way they chose to do it worked really well. And so I'm looking forward to actually talking. It is what it is. And then going on to, okay, we're going to leave aside, kind of like last episode, I didn't mention Corey's ugly dress.
Yes.
I'm moving on from that. I'm going to move on from I don't know if I've done this and discuss what we got.
Okay. All right. So why don't we do that?
All right.
All right. So let's talk about our guest cast before we get into our main discussion. Obviously, we get the return of Alan Ritchson as Hawk and Hank Hall, and then Minka Kelly as Dawn Granger. She doesn't appear as Dove in this episode,
right?
But obviously, great to see her again. Big star in this one, especially for the two of us because we're such big Star Trek fans. Marina Sirtis, who plays Marie Granger, Dawn's mom. And, of course, she's best known for playing Deanna Troi on Star Trek The Next Generation and 4 of the Star Trek films, the last 4, prior to the J.J. Abrams reboot, the Kelvin timeline. And obviously that's where she's primarily known. Now, she's also had a little bit of work in the DC Universe before. She's voiced the supervillain Queen Bee for the Young Justice animated series. And if you're a fan of the old animated series Gargoyle, she played the character Demona.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's where you may have obviously seen her before. She's been in various episodes of things here and there, NCIS and some other things. But, obviously that Deanna Troi is obviously her major claim to fame.
Yes.
And were you geeking out over her before we talk about the others?
I was very happy to see her. She played a really well done the mom with
Yes.
the flaws, and
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice. We'll talk about this.
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit
yeah,
more.
we'll talk about it because
Yeah.
so obviously that's one of the segments I want to talk about. Obviously, with
Okay.
is Marie and Dawn
Yeah,
having a conversation, because that was kind of pretty important, I thought.
I agree.
All right.
But yes, I was very happy to see her. Truly, one of my a really favorite character.
Yeah.
From Next Generation. Always had a little bit of crush on her.
Right.
So yes, it was really good to see her.
Yep. We get the introduction of Elliot Knight, who plays the first Dove, Don Hall.
Yes.
And a very interesting casting choice, but I thought he did a really good job.
I thought he was really good in it. Yes.
Yeah, we're obviously going to talk about him here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But you may have recognized him from if you're a Once Upon a Time fan, where he played Merlin on that series, so a pretty notable character. And he was recently playing the character Wes Charles, no relation, on the CW series Life Sentence, if you happen to check out that show.
I did not. But,
okay.
Yes, I liked him a lot.
Yep. And we had Mishu Villani as Dr. Kimberly Kraft, a character I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see more of, because of a certain reference that's made in this episode. She's notable primarily for a couple of minor roles. She played a UN representative in the movie Pacific Rim, which is a movie I really like, directed by Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
And she played a character named Lena Shankar on an episode of the short-lived but fondly remembered adaptation of the Dresden Files on the Sci-Fi Network.
Yes.
Which I really liked.
I liked that series a lot
because I'm a big fan of the novel series by Jim Butcher,
mm-hmm.
and so I kind of missed that show, and I'm hoping they do it right.
Now,
in another adaptation.
I don't know if it's worth going off in a tangent, but
yeah,
I do not know who Kimberly Kraft is, and
she's not a DC character.
Okay.
I mean, she's not a DC character, but the reason I kind of mentioned her because there's a reference that like, hey, the doc gave us these, some kind of hinted that that she gave both Hank and Don some pills to help them fight crime. That's the only reason. Okay. So I kind of wondered if we would see more of that, maybe. Okay. Trevor Hayes, who played the rather skeevy Coach Vincent, he's been in episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, Heroes Reborn, and an episode of The Strain. That's maybe where you've seen him before. So that's our guest cast for this week. And so let's dive into our main topics.
Please.
And our first topic, I wasn't very creative this week. I kind of ran out of time because I've been doing Christmas shopping.
Yes.
And so I just kind of broke this down into rather three, I think, very obvious segments because there wasn't much else to kind of break this episode down. So first topic I want to talk about, Hank and Don. That's D-O-N.
Okay.
Hank and Don. The brothers Hall. And the original version of Hawk and Dove. So I want to get your thoughts on these two characters as we're kind of introduced to them and getting a glimpse of their first night out as Hawk and Dove and how they're all excited to be crime fighters and their kind of brotherly love. And brotherly loyalty. So I want to get your thoughts on these two characters.
I really liked them, both the younger version and the more current version. Have a little bit of confusion on the coach, that you would have the same coach in Pop Warner football and then in high school football. But, I'm assuming
maybe he got promoted.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But I loved the brotherhood,
Yes.
the companionship. They explained very quickly that they had one mom, different fathers,
Right.
but there was a lot of love and respect for each other. And and I don't know if it was a smart idea to go out and, because you need to get rid of some of this anger, to
Yeah.
go be, you know,
Crime fighting
crime fighting. Yeah. And
Well, maybe you figured it was Don figured that it was a better outlet for Hank's anger
yes.
than just punishing himself on the football field.
Yeah.
Or it's like maybe he figured he'd end up in boxing, because he was talking about boxing there for a while, and he's like,
Mhm.
well, maybe that's not great for your, either. But
yeah. And the whole, you've got to wear your helmet because they need you to take care of your head. But
yes,
I love their friendship. I love
Yeah.
their relationship, and I loved how they explained the moves they had, and how they originally got into a fight because of this. I thought the brothers, once again, if this show has done anything really well, it's done really good backstories, and at least from our discussion, stories we would like to see. Like,
Yeah.
I would like to see stories of Hank and Dawn.
yes,
D-O-N. Just like we want to see young Wonder Girl and
Right.
Robin. So, yeah, I like this a lot.
we keep coming up with these spin-off series. Have you
Yeah.
noticed this trend?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. And that's a mark of a good show that the characters are so good that you want to see more of them, and their pasts explored, I think.
Yes.
I really liked these two together. I thought Elliot and I did a great job as Don, and he provided a nice counterbalance, because obviously Don's the more serious one. Hank is the kind of, this maybe not as bright, but he's outgoing, and he puts himself all out there, and they provide this nice counterbalance, which is one of the dynamics which was essential for the original comic series back in the 60s, showing these two characters.
Yes.
And that co-created by Steve Ditko, and that of Spider-Man fame, of course, and Doctor Strange. And these characters, that because they provide this nice balance, in the original comics, they had more of a frictional relationship, because Hank was the kind of, it was Hawk and Dove was in the 60s, for those who don't know, were essentially references to the hawkish conservatives and the dovish liberals of the time period.
Right.
And the warmongering versus the peace loving.
Yes.
And that's where they kind of got the inspiration for these characters. But here, their names are essentially drawn from the yearbook. That Don gets the idea that, hey, there's this great scene, where they have Don is trying to convince Hank that going out and fighting crime, going after these sex offenders, is a really good idea. And he kind of wins over Hank to the idea, and Hank kind of smiles, and he's like, okay, what do we got to call ourselves? And so then Don kind of looks over at this yearbook, which plays a lot, factors in a lot in this episode. And the team that Hank used to play for when they were younger was the Hawks, the Eldon Hawks. And that's where obviously they get the name for Hawk. So presumably they decided to come up with Dove for Don.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting, the way the change there. Now, obviously the big story of these two is this locker room incident.
Yes.
And this is something that maybe couldn't have been addressed had this been a CW series.
No,
I think.
I don't think it could have been at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the credits to DC Universe is that they're able to tackle this kind of subject matter here.
I almost thought we were going to see some nudity at when Dawn was, taking off her clothes.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that here in a
Yeah.
minute. But when we talk about Hank and Dawn, but
Yeah. I first off, well said about the kind of summary, the
yeah,
history. I like this version better. I like that they are close to each other and they're not two warring brothers
right.
on two extremes. I like
Not. It doesn't have rely on the political
right.
subtext with these characters.
Yeah, so I like that a lot. I enjoyed um, seeing them disagree as brothers often do, but
Right.
still having a love and respect for each other. Um, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I picked up very quickly, and I think they wanted us to, when the coach was. At first, I wasn't sure why he was staring at Dawn, but then once it was in the locker room and the young Dawn says he's going to show me the weight room, you're
Right.
like, oh, red flag, right? Oh
Right.
no. A very mature story point.
Right.
A very brave point of Hank saying, I'll go to her.
Right.
Basically saying, look, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it to me, not to my little brother.
Right.
A chilling storyline that, makes me angry, makes me sad.
Right.
And they handled it very well, I thought, very delicately, but not sugarcoating it either.
No, because obviously when we were introduced to Hawk in Hawk and Dove, the episode 2 of this season, we knew he had this anger. But we figured because of it, knowing him from the comics, that that's his personality, that he's kind of this hothead.
Exactly. That was
And
exactly what I was gonna do.
but here in this episode, because we get this very important revelation that he was sexually molested as a child because of this horrible Coach Vincent, and it obviously really explains why he is the way he is. And especially in this episode, because we see the lingering effects. When later on, and we'll talk about this, that when he and Dawn Granger confront the coach later on, he was, there was that explanation that he didn't want to confront this because it would make it real.
Yes.
He was in denial over it, which is understandable because a lot of abuse victims feel this way.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and it just gives this greater understanding and depth to this character, I thought.
It gave so much depth. And also, I think.
And it's obviously a big divergence from the comics.
Yeah. Alan Ritchson
Yes.
plays this really well, Charles, because the guilt of because he volunteered to do this.
Yeah.
And so many victims do blame themselves, which
Right.
is totally wrong. And I'm,
But he made a choice though, and that's a credit to who Hank is
Yes.
that he knew that his brother was in trouble. He kept trying to tell his younger brother, hey, you need to get the F out of here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the younger Don wasn't quite grasping the seriousness of their predicament.
And the older Don did.
Yes. Later, well, yeah, probably
help him.
Probably after, as time went on,
right.
The older Don figured it out.
Yeah. So
and because he talks about like, hey, I know what happened in the the locker room,
mm-hmm.
and it's probably helped Don remain so protective of his brother because of his brother's sacrifice.
Yeah.
And being abused so that Don wouldn't have to be. And so he feels probably Don has a considerable amount of guilt as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the idea that all this baggage that Hank has, Alan has played really well.
Right.
We get the senseless death of his brother.
Right.
And I guess we'll move into
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. We will. Yeah, we will. But
Yeah. So I just thought they were great together, and they set this up really well.
yeah. Now they end up getting kicked out of school,
Right.
and which is I thought was an interesting parallel because if you remember in the locker room scene that the younger Don was just like, I don't want to get expelled.
Right.
And then here we have the older Don, like, blatantly confronting, and when they're called into the dean's office, that it's not Hank that's all kind of not really, just frustrated and angry over the situation and blowing it up.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's Don.
Yeah.
Who basically gets it all up in her grill and says, just kick us the F out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course she does, which sets off this whole chain of events of them deciding, hey, let's go fight crime and go after sex offenders.
Yeah.
But I just thought there was an interesting, parallel, not really parallel, but just that kind of connection to Don's past.
Yeah, and I also really, really love the idea, look, why are we going through this game?
Yes.
You've used my brother, you've taken him, you've abused him, and
Right.
now then let's just get this going. So
Yeah.
I love that. It just was really well done.
Yeah, and then we obviously see them, that's how we get the opening teaser where they're kind of deciding to record on a camcorder, because this was 2009. They weren't using cell phones quite yet,
Right.
for recording this stuff. And they decide to film their first outing as Hawk and Dove. And we see them, they're kind of dressed in these kind of makeshift prototype costumes. They've got like football pads on, and they've got they're wearing hockey helmets,
Mm-hmm.
and at least it looks like hockey helmets.
Yes.
And that they're obviously this very homemade outfits, and they're out there and they're just okay, I'm going to beat on this guy, and okay, now it's my turn. You record while I go beat on this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then later on we see them, when they go to the newsstand,
Mm-hmm.
and they get their first newspaper of where they're right on the front page of the Washington Sentinel, and they're just, that they've taken down this child pornography ring. And they're just all excited and that, hey, they got our names, and Hank is especially just geeking out that they got the names spelled right.
Exactly. And then
of course tragedy hits, but
Batman and Robin, you've got company or something
right.
along that lines. Yes.
Yeah. So so that was good, just to see that they were just really enjoying themselves in it, and it was something they got to share more again as brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nice. And obviously this is when Don dies, obviously is one of the reasons why it affects Hank so severely. So anything else about these two characters before we move on?
No, not at all.
All right. Segment number 2, Marie and Dawn. That's DAWN. You notice the similarities of the characters' names, Don and Dawn.
Yes.
So this is the second Dove, although she's not quite Dove yet. Dawn Granger and her mother, Marie Granger, again played by Marina Sirtis, and we find out we get to see that they apparently have a regular ritual of afternoon tea.
Yes.
At a tea house, and very British because obviously Marina and Marie are British. That that's her background, and obviously she's shared it with her daughter. and it's something they regularly do together as mother and daughter. So I want to get your thoughts on these two characters and Marie's own story of abuse, and kind of also connects with Dawn and Dawn's sister Holly, who I want to talk about as well. But I want to get your thoughts on this other story of abuse in this episode.
Yeah, you know, I don't understand this, but I
Right.
know it is often, well, if I just do everything right, he won't hit me anymore.
Yes.
And there's so much sadness to that, and I know it is it is hard to break that cycle, and it's hard to get out of that.
Right.
I
Because
loved
we do have that contrast here with the child abuse and now spousal abuse.
yes,
And you know, and a lot of the victimization that women feel at the hands of these men that
yes,
abuse them.
and I loved her mom's pride in her dancing. It
Right.
was nice to see the ballet scenes, the whole lovely afternoon tea ritual, which
Yes.
we got to flash back to when she takes Hank to that,
Yes.
which was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the whole um, family dynamic of you've got to get out of this, and the mom, in her mind, not Dawn thinks she's not strong enough. And there's just so many reasons behind this. Once again, good episode and a very adult subject line that the Titans is taking. It's one thing when you throw in F-bombs every once in a while to
Right.
show, hey, we're an adult show. But by having these kind of storylines truly cement the fact that we're telling a story for adults, and
Right.
we want, we're not afraid of a heavier topic.
Yeah, and obviously this is probably the most uncomfortable Titans episode we've seen so far, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And but it's important, I think. And it is very interesting that this topic of spousal abuse with Dawn's mom, and that apparently has spilled out to Dawn a little bit, because apparently she makes a reference that, well, hey, I left and my sister Holly left.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, because Holly is a more obscure character, Holly Granger is a character that was, not surprisingly, created by Jeff Johns during his run on Teen Titans, and as a kind of a replacement for Hank Hall as Hawk. So she was the second Hawk, very briefly, while Hawk was off became the supervillain Monarch, and then from Monarch he became the supervillain Extant.
Yes.
And that whole thing that spun out of the event Armageddon 2001 back in the day. But here, Holly is referenced. We don't get to see her, obviously, as the second Hawk, but she's referenced, and so she obviously exists in this continuity. I kind of wonder, maybe at some future point, maybe we'll see her down the line. And we find out that apparently Holly was the reason for this recent period of abuse at the hands of of Marie being abused, because apparently I don't know if it's stepfather or their father. It's never made quite clear, but I'm presuming a stepfather here.
Yes.
And that presumably Holly apparently was involved in some kind of shoplifting and got in trouble, and apparently that triggered their stepfather and set off his temper, and that's what triggered this recent period of abuse. Although it was apparently came after Dawn had kind of stood up to their stepfather and broke his arm. And apparently that, according to Marie, settled him down for a while until Holly's shoplifting incident.
Yeah, I love the fact that Dawn is not a pacifist.
Yes.
She is a little more controlled
Right.
than Hank, but she is just as strong and just as able, what we needed to do, that making the tough choices and doing things.
Yeah.
I was not aware of the other Granger.
Holly Granger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't remember that part of it.
Yeah.
In fact, I had forgotten that Hank ended
Yeah.
up
I want
being
to say
a
it's
bad
like around
guy.
issue 22 or 23 of the Jeff Johns Teen Titans run.
Yeah, but I love that he threw a little Easter egg in there.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think it was having her mother die certainly affected her, and we see that later when both of them trying to work through their grief.
Right.
So I don't have much else to share though.
No, that's okay.
That.
That's okay. So ultimately, we see Marie and Dawn after they've had their tea and they had this discussion. After Dawn keeps trying to get her mother Marie to leave her stepfather, that they end up going walking, and they just happen to bump into, of course, Hank and Dawn, and the two kind of meet, and there's this initial connection right away between Hank and Dawn Granger, where they kind of look at each other, and just that kind of instant connection. And then, of course, just as that really great moment happens, tragedy strikes when this van comes speeding down the road, collides into a truck, which sends the truck smack dab into that newsstand, which kills Dawn and Marie.
Yes.
And leaving Hank and Dawn Granger both affected and traumatized for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it is. And it was really well done how they did that. At least I think so.
Right.
Like, oh my goodness. So
yeah,
really
it's very
sudden.
It's very sudden and out of nowhere, and it's obviously a very big shock.
Yes.
And because in the comics, Don dies, but he dies as Dove, saving kids from a falling building.
Yeah.
In Crisis on Infinite Earths number 12. And that ultimately leads to hey, we need another Dove to be with Hawk, so they created Dawn Granger as a result. An interesting we were talking about Easter eggs. Dawn Granger was created by Barbara and Carl Kiesel, who co-wrote the original Hawk and Dove miniseries with Rob Liefeld that introduced Dawn Granger, and and Rob Liefeld, of course, a former Titan talker from back in the day. So a little side note there to the side note.
Yes.
But if you notice that the football team that Hank was playing for was the Kiesel Lions.
No, I did see that.
So that was a nice little nod. And
yes, it was.
And Eldon was the name of the little suburb of Washington, D.C. that Hawk and Dove operated out of. And so that was a little nice nod as well. So a lot of good Hawk and Dove Easter eggs and there was also the reference that while Hank and Don were at that frat party, that Hank mentioned that, hey, Ren is here. And Renata is a character that was Hank Hall's girlfriend in the Hawk and Dove ongoing series written by Barbara and Carl Kiesel. So
nice. I did not realize all that.
Yeah. So there's So there's quite a number of Easter eggs, and Jeff Johns obviously loves his Easter eggs. If you're familiar at all with his work.
Yes.
So I just thought I'd mention that while we got on the subject. All right.
Perfect.
So let's move on to our third topic. Hank and Dawn. Not the
Nice.
title of the episode. So we had Hank and Dawn, D-O-N, Marie and Dawn, D-A-W-N, and now Hank and Dawn, D-A-W-N. So obviously this tragic event of losing Hank's brother and Dawn's mother affects them both. They go to this grief counseling, and it's kind of there where they start to they both don't open up during the sessions. They just kind of sit and listen. Hank is really frustrated with it. He goes to a bar, and then Dawn meets him there, and it's from there these two start to develop their relationship. So I want to get your thoughts on these two characters, and ultimately where it leads them to eventually becoming Hawk and Dove.
I think this does a great job of showing how their relationship started and why there is a bond. We do not know how if Dawn and Richard ended up fooling around. Now, we know that when Rachel touched her, she saw scenes of that, but you could imply that was that was a fantasy or daydream or something. We don't know. But if you go, why are these two people caring about each other? I think this does a great job of showing they have bonded together because of this shared tragedy, and also they've become,
even though they're opposites. Obviously, this is a situation where opposites attract.
Yes, and they have built in a friendship that.
Well, they have this mutual bonding experience of losing someone in both the same incident.
Yes.
And it's kind of become the foundation of their relationship.
Yeah, so I liked that. I liked almost everything about them.
Right.
Their togetherness and their friendship. I like how at first it wasn't romantic. Instead,
Captain Kirk chiming in.
Captain Kirk, yes. The idea that they wanted to be, they were just friends, and when he asked her to spend the night, they're just being sweet and they're just being nice. And then later, after they have the excitement, is when they decide to, she makes the forward move to say, hey, this is, I want to be intimate with you. Hey, let's get in the bed and take care of business. So, I just liked everything about their relationship, and I think this did a good job explaining why she finds him attractive and why she cares about him.
Yeah.
It also shows his beginning to be addicted on painkillers and how much all that happens. I thought it was a very interesting him breaking into the doctor, at the hospital.
In the present day scenes, yes.
Yeah, stealing
he steals painkillers, and then, probably because he just, it's the only way he can sleep, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he probably figures, well, I need to get some rest, but I can't sleep because of worrying about Dawn, so let me take some painkillers. Yeah. But he does seem to, I'm kind of wondering if he does have kind of a painkiller addiction going on now.
Yeah, I wonder that too. What I did find very interesting is how good Dawn looked even in the coma, and how bad Hank looked. Like he's like, I had
he's the one who looks like he should be in the coma.
Yes, while she's just looking,
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure part of that is just because, hey, it's Minka Kelly in a coma.
Yes, exactly.
But I really love their relationship. For being just an hour-long episode. Not really that, because if you notice, these episodes are pretty short. We're lucky if we get 40 minutes with this show.
I did notice that.
Which is kind of weird because, hey, you don't have commercials, so you think you'd have a little longer episodes. But because of the time constraints of the episode, you wouldn't think they could get into a really good development of their relationship. But I think, and it's a credit to Jeff Johns here with the pacing of this story. They start off a little frictional when they meet up in the bar, and Hank apologizes. And again, this kind of like because Hank's angry at her at first, and then he kind of apologizes for behavior. So this again kind of proves my point that, well, he's an asshole, but he's a well-meaning asshole.
Yes, I think well done. Yes,
and which is, obviously redeems him somewhat for his behavior. But from there, they get this closeness. I mean, they go out. They go to afternoon tea together in this really great scene where Dawn tries to teach Hank a little culture, and you're like, okay, this is how you take the scone, and you just put a little butter with the jelly and just a little bit, and he just kind of slabs it on there and takes this big honking bite of scone. He's like, oh, I could get used to this.
Yeah, I loved that.
And she's just kind of laughing at him, but adoringly. Mm-hmm. Just that he's so different from her mother, but it also gives her to kind of keep up a tradition that she and her mother had.
Yeah, he was.
And he takes her to his brother Don's favorite pizza place.
Right. He had good taste, and they talked about
Yeah.
So yeah, I
love
these two together.
Yeah, they go back to the apartment. He tries to cook her a steak, and he burns it. But she's all like, well, at least you tried.
Yes.
And she brings back some wine and ice cream to the couch while they're watching the Chris Rock show. So that kind of dates where they are. Mm-hmm. And he drops a bottle, and she reaches out really fast, great reflexes, and catches the bottle before it breaks. And she talks about like, well, hey, I've had like 7 years of gymnastics, dance, and jujitsu. And he invites her to kind of sleep over, but he's like, no, on the couch, nothing, obviously I don't want you in my bed. This is after, of course, they've had some wine. And so she changes and goes to get a pillow out of his closet, and out falls the old Hawk costume. Yeah. And of course that triggers the whole discussion of Hawk and Dove. They watch Don's video, where he and Hank and Don were out as Hawk and Dove that we saw at the beginning of the episode. And, they, from there, it just develops really well. Hank opens up to her about his sexual abuse, mm-hmm. which is probably someone outside of Don, he's never talked about to anyone.
Yeah. And I really liked, their interactions. I loved as you shared, all the romantic back and mm-hmm. forth.
Right.
I think that was done really well.
It seems like they trust each other.
Yes, a lot of trust. And I think they're very much implying that they are not metas. They are just people that
it's not from the comics where they were imbued with the powers from the Lords of Chaos and Order.
Right.
That to have these superpowers.
And how do you feel about that?
It's obviously, being a comics fan, I'd love to see the strict adaptation, and with Donna Troy having superpowers, I don't know why Hawk and Dove couldn't have superpowers, but it does make them more street level vigilantes.
Yeah, and I think it also
maybe they'll get some superpowers later. Hopefully,
you also have the stretch of now how did he get powers and then she got powers again?
Yeah,
you got to explain this whole Lords of Chaos and
that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. They probably wanted to simplify their origin.
Yes,
and didn't want to dive into that just yet, if at all.
Yeah,
but it also sets up the fact that, well, hey, maybe Hank's now addicted to painkillers because of years of punishing himself as a vigilante.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously the big climactic moment is when they confront Hank's abuser, the Coach Vincent. Don Dawn tracks down Coach Vincent's name from the yearbook and tracks down where he lives on the internet. And obviously Hank figures it out because he checks out her laptop and goes after her.
Yeah.
But Dawn tries to confront him because, hey, she knows jujitsu and can fight. She feels pretty confident until, of course, Coach Vincent pulls a gun on her. And then Hank has to show up. He starts beating on him, really finally unloading a lot of that anger he's felt over the years. And then they make this decision. And I want to get your thoughts on this, where they decide to just close the door. Hank tells Dawn to leave, but she stays. And she's like, okay, we're going to take care of this. We don't know exactly what happens to Coach Vincent because all we see rather dramatically is that we see Dawn closing the front door as Hank continues to beat on him.
Do you think they killed him?
I think they killed him. But because obviously if he was alive, he would have pressed charges. Mm-hmm. So I think they killed him, which is rather unfortunate. But then they go back to their place, and from there, it's Dawn makes the decision after this, whatever happened, that, okay, she takes off her clothes, disrobes, he disrobes, they have sex, and very tastefully shot. It's done a lot of shadow.
Yeah.
Although you just see naked outlines of what I'm presuming is Minka Kelly's body double and Alan Ritchson, who probably did it himself. And that then Dawn wakes up the next day or afterwards, and she's like, okay, this night never happened.
Right.
So maybe it's just this one time they killed somebody and they're never speaking of it again.
All right, so here's my problem with this set of events.
Yeah.
I can't say I support that our heroes killed someone. Mm-hmm. I would have thought, and maybe I'm holding up hope that they just beat him to an inch of his life, and then
right, yeah, because you don't want them to have him kill the guy,
right,
but
and then show that expose him, somehow with
right.
all the children pornography that are on his computer.
Right.
But okay, they make the decision. Yes, that's what they're going to do. My issue is the violence driving them to having sex.
Yes.
That's a little cliche. Like, oh, now then that we've hurt someone, we've bonded over
we have
hurting
this,
/ killing someone.
Right.
Now I can't wait to have your body.
Right.
Little cliche, and I would have expected a little bit more. And I had that was my immediate thought when I watched this.
Yeah.
I forgave the episode because
I think
so much else was good.
Yeah, I think they kind of hinted about this in Hawk and Dove episode 2, where they go out and fight crime and then come back and have hot sex.
Yeah.
Afterward. Mm-hmm. So there's this kind of mix of sex and violence in their relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's certainly I would not call healthy.
It's probably right? I'm sure. Yeah, depending on. Obviously, this is open to a lot of different interpretations of how you would view this, but most people, I think, would not consider that to be very healthy.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this leads. Now we have a couple of little references before, where Rachel's face appears in Hank's mirror, and calling for Hank. And then on again on Don's monitor screen. And then here at the end of the episode, Dawn sees the Raven's reflection in Hank's hawk helmet.
Yes.
On the floor. And that triggers her to wake up finally from her coma.
Yes.
And she so we get back to the present day, and she tells Hank that they need to find Jason Todd. Well, who's Jason Todd? I have no idea, but apparently Rachel needs their help.
Yeah, and
As like Hank cradles her, waiting for doctors to arrive after she's woken up. So what did you think about the whole nods to connect it to Rachel's storyline?
a little
Confusing.
I'm glad they did, but
Yeah.
I was a little why Jason Todd?
Right.
That was.
Well, I'm kind of wondering if they think that they need help for whatever reason. But where we left off with Corey strangling Rachel in the cliffhanger of the previous episode, I'm not sure when this takes place. Is this kind of like a little timey-wiminess that maybe at the future something happens and then she needs to send out to call out to Hank and Dawn for help? I'm not sure how this works. When did Rachel do this?
I don't know.
We don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we'll get an explanation.
Yeah, because I was a little, as we talked about, I was a little surprised,
right,
that this happened, and okay, Jason Todd seems a little weird.
Right.
I don't know why we're doing that.
Rachel just probably knows he can fight, and maybe he's just like Dick, so they maybe need some help. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah,
and that's why she's also reaching out to Hank and Dawn for help as well. So the three of them can come help the others for something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping they explain it, because right now I'm just kind of confused.
Yeah, it is a little confusing. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But I just, obviously it's something important that happened in the episode, so I thought we should address it.
No, I absolutely agree.
All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
No, I liked it a lot. It continues to be a good story, and I'm loving it. Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite lines from this episode?
I did not have any lines when I watched it. Nothing stood out to me.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you do the heavy lifting on it.
Okay. We obviously talked about Hawk's line at the beginning of this episode where he goes, "Batman and Robin, you got company."
Yeah.
All excited. Thought that was good. So obviously these two were inspired, the original Hawk and Dove by Batman and Robin, which I think is kind of interesting. Absolutely. So I guess that makes Dawn Robin, presumably.
Yes.
All right. And then Hank to Dawn at the frat party. He goes, "Come on, please, bro. We won. It's playoff week. Everyone's having a good time. Relax. All right? Worries for tomorrow. Hakuna Matata, baby brother."
Yes, that was funny. Yes,
that was funny. It's obviously a reference to the Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful bit of dialogue where Dawn is talking to the counselor at that grief session, where Dawn says, "What happened to my mom? To everyone we loved who was hurt and killed, it was an accident. It's not fair. It's not fair that it wasn't anyone's fault, that there isn't anyone out there to blame, to go after, to hate." And the counselor replies, "Life isn't fair." And Dawn counters with that. She goes, "Why not? Why can't we make it fair?"
Yeah.
Which is obviously one of the reasons I think she becomes Dove, is that she wants to she feels this unfairness in the universe, and it's by being Dove, maybe she feels she can help make it a little more fair.
I think so. I think that's very much so.
And then obviously it's driven by the guilt over losing her mother. So pretty important, I think. Last bit of dialogue was between Hank and Dawn, where Hank is setting up the couch for her to sleep on. And Dawn goes, "You want some help?" And Hank's like, "I got it." Dawn goes, "I mean, you've literally charmed the pants off of me. It's the least I can do."
That was nice. I did like that line.
Yeah, as
Absolutely.
she's sitting there wearing Hank's old T-shirt and his boxer shorts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. All right, what's your rating for this episode?
I give this one down a little bit.
Yeah.
I still give it 8.
Yeah.
8 biscuits with tea.
Oh, very nice. As I'm having my tea bottle right here,
Yes.
so I'm having tea as well. So that's good. I was a little more generous than you. I really kind of liked this episode a little bit. I give it 8.5, but I give it 8.5 Superman T-shirts because Don is rocking the Superman T-shirt.
I did see that and I loved it. I did love that. Yeah, that's
so.
awesome.
As a big Superman fan, I give a major shout out to the original Dove for rocking the Superman T-shirt.
Very cool.
All right, I don't have any Titans Tower news this time. Hopefully, we'll get some next time, but. We do have one Tell It to Titan talk from, of course, DJ Nick. Did you want to read DJ Nick's, or do you want me to?
I did not pull it. Go ahead.
Okay, I've got it. So DJ Nick writes in once again from Milan, Italy. He goes, "Hey there, Charles and Jesse. Hope all is good with you guys, and wanted to start off wishing a happy Hanukkah to anybody who celebrates this holiday. So happy Hanukkah, everybody. Just finished watching Hank and Dawn, and I love how it not only gives us a backstory to the titular characters, but also provides us with what is the overlaying arc of this first season, maybe with its ending. Was really happy about the nod to the original incarnation of Hawk and Dove with that flashback featuring Don Hall, and found that the emotionally shattering and profound tragedy that is loss was very well presented and expertly written by Jeff Johns this episode." I agree, totally.
Absolutely.
I may have enjoyed the coach's comeuppance way too much, but I have no love at all for the social plague that is pedophilia and sexual predatory on children.
Absolutely. Well
said. Exactly. Anyone who has any kind of heart and sense in their heads would obviously have a problem with this. Totally agreed. Now here's my thought on the season so far. It seems like the overarching theme for this season is bad fathers. From the aloof Bruce Wayne with Dick, Trigon with Raven, Hank and Don's absentee fathers, and of course the manipulative Chief in the Doom Patrol. So the impression is that the writers want to get across that the majority of these characters have, quote, daddy issues, unquote, which differs slightly in some cases compared to their comic book counterparts. An interesting point, I thought.
That is an interesting point. I think really well done.
Yeah.
I had not connected that, but I can't disagree with it. Good job.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a little grander than that. I think it's just this kind of parental issues, because obviously Dawn has a bad father as well, but she's also got some issues with her mother going on. So I think it's both. I think it's a lot of parental issues that affect a lot of these Titans in this season. So DJ Nick continues, super look forward to being a part of the season finale with you guys. And if Jesse ever buys that Doctor Who scarf, I want to see him wearing it. Yeah. Unfortunately, that scarf seems to be sold out. So,
yes.
As I looked it up. Also, Charles, I want to congratulate you on your post regarding Bill Maher and how you conducted the debate that ensued from that post. Good job. He's referring to this Facebook post that I posted back when Bill Maher made his rather stupid comments about Stan Lee right after Stan Lee's death, just to kind of use Stan Lee's death as a platform for saying that people that enjoy comic books and comic book movies aren't adult, which obviously I kind of take serious issue with, as do a lot of people. And obviously I found that those comments in very poor taste and stated so publicly, and got someone who took issue with my taking issue because he was apparently a very loyal Bill Maher fan. And so thanks, Nick. I appreciate you appreciating my post. So
absolutely.
Thanks. All the best, guys. Talk soon. Ciao. ! DJ Nick. So thank you, Nick, for writing in. As always, you're one of our most loyal listeners. And I really appreciate you and everybody else that listens to our podcast.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you want to be like DJ Nick and you want to write it to us here at Titan Talk, you can reach us at titantalkcast@gmail.com. That's titantalkcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We've gotten some feedback here from various people, but always great to hear from you there. And we don't have to read your letters on the podcast. So if you don't want us to and you just want to write in, just tell us not to read it over the air. Otherwise, you can reach us on Facebook at Titan Talk, the Titans Podcast. We definitely appreciate that because, hey, that helps people find us. And on the Twitter, of course, at Titan Talkcast on Twitter. That would also be appreciated if you follow us there. Otherwise, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. And please go to iTunes, rate and review us because, again, that helps people find the podcast. And the more that people are aware of our podcast, obviously that helps grow our community. And we'd obviously love to keep this growing for everybody to share their love of this series because it's turning into quite an entertaining series. And would definitely appreciate all that. So.
Absolutely. We currently are up to 9 ratings.
All right. That's
and
a
we
good step
have
up. Keep it going, guys.
Yeah, and we have, I think, it looks like 5 customer reviews.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully people are enjoying the podcast, and if not, just let us know what you think we're doing wrong and any kind of like audio issues. I know we've had a couple of those lately that we're trying to address. So just let us know, and otherwise, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and we'll keep doing our best.
Absolutely. By the way,
Jesse, yes.
The last review we got was a guy named Stephen Dallas, and I had to share a little part of this.
Yeah.
He said, before finding this Titans podcast, I listened to another, but did not care for one of the 3 hosts on the show. Luckily, I found this one because both hosts are great. I really like the structure of the show. Jesse and Charles not only bring a wealth of background knowledge of the DC Universe, but they also complement each other very well during their Titans analysis. Charles and Jesse have also found creative ways to involve listeners in the show, providing multiple ways you can communicate with them, whether it's email, Facebook, or Twitter. They even read and answer my email on the podcast. I really didn't have any suggestions for making the show better, except maybe include a segment in the podcast that delves more deeply into the Titans' wardrobe choices. Jesse seems to be fascinated with Corey's outfits and brings it up every episode.
maybe we need to have a Jesse Jackson's Fashion Police episode.
I just had to share that. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. We really appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you for writing in.
Since Jesse brings it up in every episode, yes.
Yep, yeah.
I can be reached at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I can also be, you can hear me talk about Bruce Springsteen on Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast. And you can hear Charles and I, if you like this lovely banter, you will love us on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where we talk about Doctor Who and how much we are loving this season. And if you want to give us your voice, you can dial 214-736-3121. That is my Skype number. You can leave a voicemail, and then we can add your voice to the feedback section of the podcast.
All right.
And Charles, how about you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. Also, or if you record your audio and you email it to titantalkcast@gmail.com, we can also do that there as well.
Absolutely.
Little heads up. As for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. And my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about all the things we talk about here on Titan Talk. All kinds of comic book, sci-fi news, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, Image Comics, you name it. All kinds of, anything relating to all my various interests. and news of my other podcasts I do for Southgate Media Group, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, or the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with friend of the show, Karen Lindsay, where we talk about other comic book shows on TV, and Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, etc., etc. So please check those out there, all those for the Southgate Media Group. We definitely appreciate that. And also please go to the Southgate Media Group website and at southgatemediagroup.com, and please support our Patreon there, because that helps keep the lights on for Titan Talk. We definitely appreciate that, and I'm sure our big head honcho Rob Southgate would definitely appreciate that as well. All right, so next time on Titan Talk, we're going to talk about another great episode title, Coriander. Well done, guys. Coriander. So this is obviously episode 10, presumably picking up with the events of the cliffhanger from episode 8 as we finally get back to that. We find out what happened, and the premise of that is, as Corey's memories come flooding back, she discovers her true mission regarding Rachel, while Dick and Donna discover Corey's alien origins, so confirmation that she's alien, guys, which we kind of knew, but hey. Rachel uses her powers to save Gar. What is she saving him from? We'll find out. And if you saw the trailer at the end of Hank and Dawn for next week's episode, you'll see that Donna Troy is using her golden lasso.
I did see that. And
how cool was that?
It was very cool. I was like, yes, 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 yes.
We get the lasso, guys. Mm-hmm. So very cool. Cannot wait to see Donna using her Wonder Girl lasso.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Very cool. All right, looking forward to that. And so come on back next week. It's going to be a good one, I think, for Coriander, as we talk about that here on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Bye, everybody.